The first time Suddy truly felt afraid of her daughter was on a quiet night when she woke up suddenly and realized the house was too silent. She turned on the bed and noticed that Abia was not lying on her mattress beside the wall where she usually slept. At first, Suddy thought the girl had gone outside to use the toilet, but something made her get up and look through the window. When she pushed the curtain aside, her heart jumped. Abia was standing in the middle of the compound. The girl was barefoot and wearing only her thin night dress. The cold night air was heavy with dew, yet she did not look uncomfortable. She stood very still, staring into the darkness beyond the fence, as if she could see something that was not visible to anyone else. Suddy watched her for several seconds, confused and unsettled. It was almost morning, and nothing moved around them except the quiet rustling of leaves. Suddy stepped outside slowly and called her daughter's name. Abia turned and looked at her mother with sleepy eyes, as if she had just woken up from a deep dream. She did not seem surprised to see her standing there. "Why are you outside?" Suddy asked. The girl only blinked and said she did not know. That was the first moment Suddy began to feel that something about her daughter was not normal. For many years before that night, Abia had been a quiet but ordinary child. She was 12 years old now, tall and slim with smooth dark skin and thoughtful eyes that often made people think she was older than her age. She lived alone with her mother in a modest house after her father died when she was still a young girl. Life had not been easy for Suddy since her husband's death. She sold vegetables in the market and worked long hours to make sure her daughter stayed in school. Despite their struggles, Abia had grown into a calm and respectful girl who rarely caused trouble. She had always been quieter than other children. When she was younger, she often preferred sitting alone under the mango tree behind their house rather than joining the noisy games played by the neighborhood children. At the time, Suddy thought it was simply part of her daughter's personality. Some children were naturally calm. But everything began to change shortly after Abia turned 13. At first, the changes were small enough that Suddy did not think too much about them. The girl began waking up at strange hours of the night. Sometimes Suddy would hear the door open softly, and when she checked, she would find Abia sitting outside in the compound without any clear reason. When asked why she was awake, the girl would say she simply could not sleep. Suddy believed her in the beginning. Many teenagers struggled with sleep, and she assumed it was only a phase. However, the situation slowly began to feel more disturbing. Abia did not behave like someone who was restless or unable to sleep. Instead, she often looked calm and distant, as if she were quietly listening to something that nobody else could hear. The neighbors soon started noticing strange things as well. One afternoon, a woman named Mama Coco visited Suddy at the market with a worried expression. She explained that she had seen Abia standing outside her compound gate for a long time the previous day. The girl had not knocked or called anyone. She simply stood there silently and stared at the house. When Mama Coco finally asked what she wanted, the girl turned and walked away without saying a single word. When Suddy returned home that evening, she questioned her daughter about it. Abia looked genuinely confused. She insisted that she had no memory of visiting the woman's house. That answer unsettled Suddy more than the incident itself. Around the same time, teachers at Abia's school began reporting unusual behavior. They said the girl had developed a habit of staring out the classroom window during lessons. It was not the kind of distraction most students showed when they were bored. Instead, it looked as if she were paying attention to something outside. One day, during a mathematics test, the teacher noticed that Abia had stopped answering the questions. Instead of solving the problems, she had filled half of the paper with strange drawings made of circles and repeated lines. The teacher assumed she was joking and punished her for wasting the test. Later, when the paper was shown to Suddy, the drawings looked odd and meaningless. They were not random scribbles. The shapes repeated themselves again and again, almost like symbols. When Suddy asked her daughter what they meant, the girl said she did not know. She explained that her hand had simply moved on its own while she was thinking. The explanation made no sense. Soon, Suddy began noticing strange things happening inside their house. Items sometimes appeared in different places from where they had been kept. A cooking pot that had been on the table would suddenly appear on the floor. A window that had been closed would be found open in the morning. At first, Suddy blamed herself. She assumed she had simply forgotten moving the items because she was tired from work. But the incidents continued often enough to make her uneasy. The most disturbing change came when Suddy began hearing her daughter whisper in her sleep. The first time it happened, she woke up in the middle of the night and heard a soft voice coming from the corner of the room. At first, she thought someone had entered the house. But when she listened carefully, she realized it was Abia. The girl was asleep, but quietly murmuring words that Suddy could not fully understand. Some of the sounds seemed like broken sentences. Others sounded like names or phrases spoken in a low tone. Suddy shook her awake immediately. Abia opened her eyes slowly and looked confused, as if she had been pulled out of a deep dream. When Suddy asked what she had been saying, the girl said she did not remember speaking at all. She only said she had been dreaming about water. Suddy did not sleep well that night. As weeks passed, the whispers happened more often. Sometimes the girl's voice sounded soft and calm. Other times, it sounded unusually deep for someone her age. By now, the neighbors had begun talking openly. In many Nigerian communities, stories about spirit children were still common. Some people believed certain children were connected to another world. When a child behaved in ways that seemed difficult to explain, people quickly began whispering about spiritual causes. A few neighbors suggested that Abia might be one of those children. Others warned Suddy that something might be following her daughter. Suddy tried to ignore the gossip, but the fear in her heart continued growing. The most frightening incident happened one evening during the rainy season. The sky had turned dark early, and heavy clouds covered the town. Suddy arrived home late from the market after struggling to find transportation in the rain. As she approached the house, she noticed the front door was slightly open. Her heart immediately began beating faster. She pushed the door carefully and stepped inside. The room was quiet except for the sound of water dripping outside. Abia was standing in the middle of the room. She was not moving. Her feet were muddy, as if she had walked through wet ground. Yet her dress was completely dry. Suddy called her name. The girl turned slowly with a strange expression in her eyes. She did not look angry or frightened. Instead, she looked distant, like someone who was not fully awake. Later that night, when Suddy asked where she had been, Abia insisted she had never left the house. The confusion on her face seemed real. At that point, Suddy decided she needed help. She visited several churches and prayer houses where pastors prayed for her daughter. Some believed the girl was under a spiritual attack. Others suggested that restless spirits were disturbing her sleep. Despite the prayers, nothing changed. The strange behavior continued. Finally, after months of fear and confusion, Suddy visited an experienced doctor in town. Unlike the spiritual leaders she had consulted before, the doctor listened carefully to every detail of the story before examining Abia. He asked many questions about her sleeping habits, stress, and daily routine. After the examination, the doctor explained something Suddy had never considered. He believed Abia might be suffering from a sleep disorder known as sleepwalking. Some teenagers developed it during periods of emotional stress or irregular sleep patterns. When a person sleepwalked, they could get up, walk around, or even perform activities while still technically asleep. They might appear awake but would have no memory of their actions later. The whispers during sleep, the wandering at night, and even the strange writing during the test could all happen during moments when the brain was half asleep and half awake. The doctor also explained that people in this state sometimes looked distant or confused when suddenly awakened. For the first time in many months, Suddy felt a small sense of relief. The doctor advised her to help her daughter maintain a regular sleeping schedule and to make sure the house was safe in case the sleepwalking continued. He also suggested reducing stress and ensuring the girl got enough rest. Suddy followed every instruction carefully. She locked the doors at night, removed objects that could cause injury, and encouraged her daughter to sleep earlier. Gradually, the strange incidents became less frequent. The midnight wandering reduced, and the whispers slowly faded.